with a combination of the rumors floating around where dragons might be taxed and you can only take a single level 4, and on top of that, the upcoming international play on the horizon, I figured it was time to start stepping my game up, and I was looking for the next army that I'm going to play. I'm not sure if I've landed on it, but I am testing Bretonnians, and I want to go with my variation of Bretonnians. The list looks very similar to how a normal Bretonnian list would be written. There's not a huge amount of changes, but it's very much the play style that I've been going with. And I want to go with something that's less full send. One of the issues that I have with Bretonnians that it's very sort of all in, which I don't love. So I wanted to try playing them as a more stay out of charge arcs, pick the fights you want to pick, do some decent range damage, that sort of build. I think the list needs some tweaks, but I'm happy with how it started off. The main goals I wanted to achieve with this list is to be tanky enough that I don't have to full send into combat. So you've got to play around the ward save and maybe have lots of cheap wounds. I wanted to have bodies that I could put on objectives if that was necessary. That's something that normally Bretonnians are going to struggle with, not having just cheap chaff to put on objectives if that's something that comes into the game later on. And also, I wanted to have the flexibility to be able to full send, do loads of damage, but also play around the edges, have magic defense, have a good magic caster if I need to, and be able to pick off things with double magic missile and pillar of fire and flame, and then also unlock the mobility that you get from having arcane urgency. Arcane urgency is just great with Pegasus Knights. You can march a unit 40 inches effectively, which is nuts. You can just get where you need to be, really pick the fights that you want to go with. So I think it's a very strong combination. The characters-wise, I've got a Baron who has got the Grail Vow, Ogre Blade, Gauntlet of the Jewel, Virtue of Knightly Temper. You've seen this before, obviously on a Royal Pegasus. You've seen this before. It is basically the poor man's version of the Frontier Axe character that you can get in the Exiles list. What it does is it hits with 5 to 7 attacks with hatred on the charge, and it gives you, an Ogre Blade. So strength 6, AP 2, armor bane, D3 damage. Very hitty, very solid, a little bit tankier than the Frontier Axe one because you use your shield as well instead of having a two-handed weapon, but you pay an extra 35 points for the privilege, so I'm not sure I love that. There is a Gauntlet of the Jewel on there as well. I just wanted to fit one of those in if possible so I could pick out pesky characters in units if needed, but it's only 5 points. It may not end up coming up. Then there is the General, who is the Duke. The Duke is the fairly standard heroism, so Monster Slayer and Killing Blow character. Super tanky, Royal Pegasus again, so T5 with 5 wounds. Got a 2-up save from the Grommel Greathelm, giving him a 1-up, rerolling 1s as well. There's the Syrian's Locket, giving you immunity to multi-wounds. And then there is a Paymaster's Coin. That gives you rerolls of... once per game, you can reroll all your hit rolls if you need to, or your failed hit rolls. This is very standard. It's a good answer to dragons in the meta. Pretty one size fits all. He's going to fly around, do a lot of damage, be hard to kill. Just a good unit to have. Third character, this is the slightly spicy one that you're not seeing in every Bretonnian list. Level 4 Prophetess, Battle Magic, Royal Pegasus as well, so up to 4 wounds at T4. And then I've gone for the Ruby Ring of Ruin and Lore Familiar. This is not a particularly uncommon combination of items across the board, but it's not something I see a lot of Bretonnian players play. What it does is it means you've got a Gatling turret that can fly around, fly 10 inches, potentially Arcane Urgency itself as well if needs be. You can fire out 2 fireballs, which is just a good magic missile, put out a Pillar of Fire, Arcane Urgency as well. Then you get another spell in there. I can't remember what I went for. Fireball, Pillar of Fire, Arcane Urgency. I think I went for the Lady's Gift, the regen. Obviously, giving regen to the high-value units, such as the Pegasus Knights, or even if you just need to make the Men-at-Arms more tanky, it's just valuable to have that as a flex pick. Into core, we've got 2 units of Men-at-Arms. They are fully upgraded with command, so the 4 command, including the Grail Monk. They've got the Triptych to give them stubborn. They've got Shield Wall inherently, so as long as the Grail Monk doesn't die, which it's pretty easy to pick out, you can auto give ground the first time you are charged in combat and lose, or you can roll on the, fall back in good order, all the good stuff there. It's just a cheap load of wounds that you can stick on an objective if needs be, if they come up, and otherwise it's just a good... You need to put something in core, and I'm underwhelmed by Knights of the Realm, I'll say. After that, I've got a unit of 6 Knights of the Realm, because you have to take one, and I think the foot units are probably worse. So I've gone for 6 models. They've got a standard bearer, a musician, and the standard is upgraded to have the war banner, so +1 combat res. Just gives them a little bit more oomph. They're static, 3 combat res from banner, close order, and war banner. Then whatever punch they do as well, they can probably win fights into small to medium units pretty consistently. And then finally, the meat of the list, the 2 units of Pegasus Knights. 1 unit of 5 with full command. They've got a banner, the Banner of Chalons, which stops your opponent from standing and shooting that unit, which is obviously very good. It was nice in this list, but honestly, it's mostly there for like dwarves. It makes dwarves a lot harder to, makes it hard for the dwarf player to deal with you. And then we've also got a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights who've just got a musician, no other upgrades there. On to Matthew's list. Matthew's playing Ogdras. He was playing Troll Horde, so I should say. So he's got Ogdras in there. He's got a level 4 Goblin Oddnob, who is a War caster with the Idol of Mork and the Thinkenorc's hat. So that combination of casters means you've got a level 3 who can pick spells from both Elementalism and the Troll Lore, I should say. So what that does is you can pick the Travel Mystical Pathways. You can pick Plague of Rust if you need it, all of the spells in there that are great, and then you can combo it with your War Magic caster, which is going to be rolling for Evil Sun Shining. Why is he rolling for that? Well, that's because Matthew's looked at the weakness of Troll Horde, and he thinks basically it's dragons, so to fix that, he's gone for a big brick of poison shooting with the goblins. I think it's a good adaptation. It was a very interesting list to play against, and it had quite a lot of legs, I thought. So the other characters, there's a double Troll Hag. One of them is the General, and that one has the Talisman of Protection. In Troll Horde, you get to reroll your regen save against non-magical attacks. So against, just regular incoming attacks, you've got a 5-up armor save, a 5-up ward save, a 5-up regen, and a reroll of the 5-up regen. Weirdly, not much gets through 4 5-up saves. Of course, as soon as you start putting magic into them, that gets significantly worse, but it's still pretty solid. The other Troll Hag has no other upgrades, and both of them are level 1 with Troll Magic. They're both going to roll a spell and then immediately swap into Big Smarts, which is the spell that lets you re-roll your stupidity tests. Into core, there's a couple of units of River Trolls, 2 units of 5 with great weapons, and then there's also a unit of the Goblin mobs with short bows. They had full command in there, and obviously there was a magic banner as well, which is the Spider Banner, giving them poison. So 60 short bows, they'll be poisoning on 6s. All of them can shoot into large targets. If they stay still, they can volley fire. You know the drill. Poison shooting is just pretty good. Finally, there is a unit of 4 troll mobs with great weapons, and then also a regular Goblin Big Boss, who is the BSB, which did come in handy for the rerolls. Just in there to give a little bit more combat res and reliability to the big poison shooting brick. Matthew wanted to test this list because he's going to an event that is not allowing Travel Mystical Pathways to work in the way it normally works. Each model can only move 12 inches. You can't move a single model more than 12 inches, which is one of the nerfs that I've seen bandied around. I am expecting this to get fixed in the next 3 months, so it was interesting to play against it and see how it plays in the sort of new unconfirmed version. So deployment, I lost the roll-off. I had more drops anyway, and I'm Bretonnians, so I knew I was going to go second, I should say. I put 1 unit of men-at-arms down here in the bottom left, next to the hill. The reason I did that, put them down, it gives me a lot of flexibility. They are 6.1 inches away from my deployment zone, which means that even if Matthew TPs forwards, moves forwards 12 inches, he then only gets to shoot 18 inches. They're fully out of range. I'm not super worried about the 9 short bow shots that you'd get from the front rank of an 11 wide unit with 2 characters, but, why take the risk if you don't have to? He then put down his big unit of goblins, I should say, which gave me a lot of flexibility in how I deployed, and I put down my second unit of men-at-arms, again, back from the angle, and then my deployment after that was the Knights of the Realm, again, just doing the same thing. At this point, I put a marker around the Night Goblins, so I could see where I could be with the Knights of the Realm, and I could be a little angled, so I could get closer to where I wanted to be in the fight, if needs be. Matthew put the River Trolls down as the second and third drops on the sides there, and then I had to commit 1 unit of Pegasus Knights. Because I knew where the teleporting unit was going to go, I decided to put my unit slightly over here. So I've got 2 units interlinked, but I've got the first unit is these 3 here, on the right-hand side of the brick of Pegasus Knights, and then the Prophetess later joined them there. This was a mistake. What I should have done is I should have put the unit of 3 on this side, because I probably wanted to get the prophetess towards dispel range. Knowing that I was going second, there was no need for me to be stood backwards to try and be out of dispel range early on, because I knew that Matthew was going to be able to move forwards. So that was a positioning error that I need to adjust for future. And then I put the second unit in here. The way that I was thinking of playing these, and I didn't actually end up doing it much in the game just because it didn't pan out, but you can interlock skirmishes so that they provide cover to the other unit. This only works super well on melee flying units, so Pegasus Knights are incredible with it, because as we all know, Pegasus Knights are not very good already, but it means that I could fly up with a little bit more impunity and not have the risk of being shot out the sky if my opponent stands still. That said, I didn't use it very well, so that's something to use in the future. Characters went down. Both of the Duke and the Baron were just tucked in, and the Prophetess was tucked in on the right. For my opponent, the other unit of Stone Trolls went down on his right flank. We talked about this, and he thought that he probably should have put it on the other side, over here next to the building. Both Troll Hags down. Ogdras went behind a unit of River Trolls, closer to the spell range, basically, of the Prophetess, and then obviously characters went into the unit, and Matthew very carefully positioned them so that they weren't stood next to each other, so when he inevitably miscast, it didn't matter, and he wasn't going to blow up his characters, which is important, because he did miscast, and he did blow up some goblins. Turn 1, Matthew went first. He rolled his stupidity, and out of the possible 5 model units that could fail it, I believe 4 of them failed, which is pretty nuts. He then cast Big Smarts. The general cast it first, the one over here, cast it, got to reroll all of his stupidity tests, passed them all, and then I believe cast it on the other side as well, passed it there. Everything was fine. Nobody had any issues. So what he went for is he full sent forwards with some trolls, which was, cast Ravenous Recourse with Ogdras, and then full sent forwards here. And what he set up was this nice little trap that I honestly didn't respect as much as I should have done. Again, we were talking about this after the game, and I think it was a pretty solid turn 1 threat, and I probably shouldn't have gone for it. So what he did was he set up his unit of trolls here on the front. They can take a bit of punishment. It's the River Trolls. They've got 4 wounds each. They've got the rerollable regen. So yes, the characters are going to molt through them, but nothing else really will. And he'd set up the Goblins so they could theoretically hold and then stand and shoot. Or not stand and shoot, sorry. They could stand still and volley fire on his turn 2 if I end up out in the open. And he also had the Troll Hag stood here to get a charge into any unit that overruns, or collect a unit that overruns as well. So fairly solid stuff there. Funnily enough, Matthew had almost everything go wrong turn 1 without anything actually going wrong that mattered. So he miscast and then failed to do any damage to himself on a spell that didn't really matter all that much. I think it was Earthen Ramparts, and I wasn't going to do much shooting turn 1. He failed all his stupidities. He then got to re-roll them, but it was a really funny start to the game, because I was sat there going, "Oh God, poor Matthew, this is all going wrong for him." And then just as the turn went on, everything sort of improved, and I realized that despite all the terrible rolling, everything kind of worked out for him in the way that he wanted. He did get the Foot of Gork down, which is terrifying to see. It's a pretty decent profile for killing Bretonnians, wounding knights on 2s, men-at-arms at 2s. It's AP 1. It does give me a 5 up ward save, but if it goes straight into the infantry, obviously just kills chunks of them, and it's a huge template. The downside of it is a random mover. But yes, so turn 1, Matthew full sends forwards and sets up this nice little trap here. Looking at that, and now that I've explained it, you obviously wouldn't take the trap. Anyway, on to my turn 1. So I took the trap. In my head, I go, the Baron, the Duke, and then 5 Pegasus Knights, they can take on 5 River Trolls. They'll just kill them all and then overrun, and it'll be fine. As you can see, that's not quite what happened. So in my turn, I tried to cast some spells. I was in range of Matthew's dispel range, so I didn't get off the Lady's Gift, which is a shame. It would have been really nice to have my own regen, even if I wasn't re-rolling it. I don't get that off, so I full charge into the unit of Trolls here. Oh, the foot rolls a hit on the direction, which is a real shame, and feels like a bit of a flavor fail for templates not actually scattering when you roll a hit, but Que sera, sera. On the right-hand flank here, I moved up once, and I moved up so I had line of sight into the Troll Hag General with my Prophetess. Obviously, I'm blocked by my own models, but it is a large target, so I was able to see round the edge of the wood. And then I cast Arcane Urgency, rolled a 5, which plus the 4 is a 9, which means I didn't get off. So I was just kind of hanging out here in the open. Not in a terrible position, but not in a super efficient position. So that was a bit of a bugger. What I wanted to do was, because my opponent only had Vindictive Glare in the unit as his only magic missile, and then had 1 unit of shooting and no other shooting, I felt pretty safe getting out of the unit. I don't feel like I needed to waste 3 Pegasus Knights as protection for the Prophetess. So what I wanted to do is to move them sideways, cast Arcane Urgency on them, move another 10 inches up, so I'd be sort of up here, again, still out of dispel range of Ogdras, but able to throw my magic missiles out, and then have the other unit of Pegasus Knights come up here, up next to the building, and try and get like a flank charge next turn or something like that. Didn't happen. Maybe I should have just marched them turn 1 and got the Prophetess out anyway. But, you know, you live, you learn. I'm testing Bretonnians. I haven't played a lot of them. As for the rest of the list, everything kind of just shuffles sideways. This unit here, the Men-at-Arms, takes a 25% move to turn sideways and then moves 3 inches. Doesn't get very far. This unit here just shuffles sideways 2 inches. Why is that? It's because there's loads of trolls over here, and I know I'm going to lose that fight, so I may as well run away from it. I'm trying to live in the side angles as opposed to anything else. So turn 1, go into combat, do an absolute ludicrous amount of damage with my 2 characters. I want to say I get 2 killing blows with the heroic killing blow character, and then, you know, do a decent amount of damage with the ogre blade as well. And then I go to the 4 knights. I think I got 4 Knights of the Realm in base to base. Yeah, I did. Not Knights of the Realm, Pegasus Knights. So I roll all my attacks, and then he rolls a ludicrous amount of regens, which is not a problem. It's what this detachment does. You know, you take your 5 up, 5 ups, passes most of them. I'm sat at, I think, 23 combat res, and he's done 3 wounds back, so he's sat at 3 combat res because I've got him down to only 2 models. Unfortunately, that means I haven't killed them all. And then he runs away, and he only runs away 8 inches, which is not enough to reach and run through any enemy models or his allied models. This means I chase him, catch him, and then I'm stood just right in front of a load of goblins, which is not where I wanted to be, and makes me go, ooh, have I lost the game on turn 1? This is a problem. So that's not ideal. Oh, shooting-wise, I should mention, I put a Ruby Ring of Ruin into the Troll Hag. Didn't do any wounds. Put a normal Fireball in. Did 3 wounds. That felt incredible. Then got my Pillar of Fire off as well. So we're stood here, good amount of damage into the Troll Hag. It's half health, and it's now giving Matthew a slightly more difficult decision as to whether he wants to charge me, because if he does charge me, he's not going to be in such a good spot. I can challenge out with the Heroic Killing Blow character or the Ogre Blade and probably do the last 3 wounds, I hope. So not a great turn 1 from me, honestly. I think I misplayed it, but good learning lesson, and it was some good defensive setup. On to Matthew's turn 2, and he was now faced with a little bit of a quandary. Does he charge in with the Troll Hag or just stand there and shoot? Well, so because I'm out of range of Dispel, maybe I should have, instead of prioritizing getting my spells off, maybe I should have gone in a little bit closer and prioritized stopping him from getting his spells off. But, you know, you are at a disadvantage to the roll when you're trying to Dispel, and he did have an item that gave him a reroll on his Dispel, so I thought I'd get more value out of my caster by staying out to the side. But by the by, he decides that he's going to try and debuff the unit, and so he casts Itchy Nuisance into them, and I, fortunately, roll a double 6 on my Fated Dispel. I got lucky with that. Then fails to cast Evil Sun Shining, which is, you know, fortunate for me as well. And I get away with the murder a little bit. He still decides that he's going to stand here and shoot with the unit instead of charging with the Troll Hag, but he does reposition. So the Troll Hag repositions here. Ogdras moves up. Onto the hill is a little bit ill-advised, but I think it was just a case of he's moving as far away as possible. And then everyone else just sort of full sends forwards. The Foot of Gork does move in the right direction, but then only rolls a 5 on the distance, so doesn't actually get into the knights, which is fine. It does mean it's a little bit of a problem for me to move through next turn, but, you know, it's fine. Could be worse. I could have lost models, eh? As you can see here, both units of trolls have just marched forwards. No issues with stupidity this turn, which is good. You know, it's always a bit of a bummer to lose against stupidity. And then we go into the shooting phase, which is the main damage phase. he lines up all his shots. Then, we count through, because obviously volley fire, you get all of the front row, which is 9. Then you get half of the back rows, or like the subsequent rows, I should say. So he's getting 6 shots from all of those, which is 18. And then he got half of the row behind that as well, which was 4, I believe, which ended up as 18, 22, 30 shots, 31 shots. They go into the squad. A decent amount of damage comes through, plenty of poison. I fail a good number of saves. Honestly, massed low strength shooting is one of the counters to Bretonnians or Pegasus Knights in general, because they've only got a 3-up save, which is, fine, but 2 wound 3-up save dies very quickly when they're only getting a 6-up ward save as well, and you've got real volume of attacks. So a couple of those die. I do fail the panic test, which is very funny. I roll a 10 despite having my leadership 9 general in there. No BSB in this list, and no veteran, which means it is a little bit more vulnerable to psychology than I'd like. So maybe something I want to play around with in the list building. But by the by, the Pegasus Knights take 3 wounds, 2 models die, I flee, end up in the woods, don't fail any dangerous terrain tests, and I'm just sat in this position where I'm like, okay, cool, now I've got to face off against that shooting again for another turn, because I can't charge with the unit. I'm confident I'm going to rally, even though both of my rallying cry units are in combat already, running away, so they won't be able to use it, but, it's a little bit of a problem. Moving on to my turn number 2, Pillar of Fire. First of all, Pillar of Fire goes through the Troll Hag and does a wound to it, which is pretty big. Really nice, dropping it down to only 2 wounds remaining. It does inform how I play the rest of my game, so that was nice to have. The Foot of Gork does go through the Knights of the Realm, funnily enough, and then kills 2 of them. So they're kind of not super happy to be where they are, but it does honestly make it easier for them to run away. So I'm not too upset about that. I do manage to get the Dispel off on Foot of Gork, which is fantastic stuff. And other than that, not too much happens. I I move to the side. I test a march with my men-at-arms. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. They've got Horde and Warband, so they're going to have a great leadership. Realize they're in marching column, so they don't have a rank, which means that they're only rolling on their leadership 5 or 6. I can't remember what it is. But they rolled like a 7 or 8, so they definitely didn't make it, which meant that unit didn't get to march, which means that they didn't get out of line of sight, which means they are going to get charged next turn, which sucks for me. And you might notice they're pretty close to the board edge. They are closer than 2 inches. So even if I stubborn and shield wall, it doesn't matter. They're just going to lose. They're just going to go off the board, and that sucks for me. But it is what it is. The other unit of men-at-arms also tries to march, also fails to march. I do cast Arcane Urgency onto them, miscast, take a wound, it's fine. I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to cast all my damage spells, so in retrospect, maybe casting Arcane Urgency wasn't super important. But I did, and it went wrong for me. Then you can see here the big mess of Pegasus Knights all looped together. And this is where I've used if you're stacked together, you can give yourself cover. So the way that it works is I've got this one here, the bottom left, the bottom right, and then the top middle. That is unit number 2. That's the unit that was attached to the the Prophetess. Then I've got over here the top left, the bottom middle, and the 2 characters. That's the unit of the that's the unit of 5 initially, down to only 2 models and 2 characters, and that is woven in, so I'm giving myself cover. The unit of 3 is, depending on where my opponent stood, is probably getting heavy cover, because partially obscured by the hill as well, and then by the unit. Just means that I'm in a good spot in terms of defensively. Both squads are likely going to be -2 to be shot, which is a nice place to be. Shooting wise, I put all my shots into the general Troll Hag again, and I kill it with double Fireball. Fireball's doing really well. I honestly, when I was playing Troll Horde, I found that they died faster than I would like to fireballs. Because you're wounding on 5s, all it takes is a little bit of a spike, get 4 wounds on the roll, and then your opponent has to make 5 ups. That can go super wrong for them. I think I forced Matthew to take 2 saves with my second fireball. I think my first one did nothing, or maybe it didn't even go off. The second one went off, I got 2 wounds, and he was like, oh, I'm going to fail these. As soon as he said it, rolled, a 1 and a 4, or 1 and a 4, or something like that, and the general keeled over, which was great for me, because Troll Hags are a right pain in the backside to deal with in combat. So I'm feeling pretty good about things. I've reassessed where I need to be. I'm now in the flank, so my opponent can't shoot me with his poison brick. He has to move it, and if he's moving it that way, he's not going to be able to get volley fire, because you can only volley fire if you stood still. That's why I haven't touched the hill, because if I touch the hill with anything, he'd be able to shoot me with his entire unit, I believe. So everything's tucked in. I'm feeling like I've made good decisions here. Coming into Matthew's turn number 3, Ogdras runs away. That's, part and parcel. Spellcasting goes pretty well. This time around, he gets everything off that he wants, with the exception of Travel Mystical Pathways. That was just a fail to cast. It is a decently high level to cast. He's casting on Ogdras, who's only a level 3. So I think it casts on a 10. He rolled a 6, and I was like, oh man, you've got it. I'm going to have to try and fate this. And he was like, no, I'm not near any trolls. So that was where the positioning of the unit of stone trolls, I think, came in, that maybe Matthew would have considered adjusting. But with that in mind, what happens is he repositions the unit, just pivots it around its base there, and he's done some clever measuring out that I didn't catch at the time, but it was a lot of Matthew doing very good positional play to make my life difficult, which I really appreciated. It was great practice. So what he's done is he's positioned it so when this unit of goblins runs away, because he's going to, turn around, shoot, then flee, and he's going to flee through the troll hag here, who's unbreakable, and then through this unit of stone trolls, I should say, sorry. And that means that he's going to end up all the way down here by the building on the bottom left, and he's not going to be at risk of dying to a charge as long as he gets, I think he only needs to roll a 5. It looks further than that, but we measured it out. It's really not that far. And that leaves me, obviously, with a weird overrun in a dangerous situation. So how did that go? Well, he turns around, does some shooting, does absolutely nothing to me. The layered -2 to hit does big work for me, which is really nice. Ogdras gets out of the way. The 2 units on the bottom here, the stone trolls and the remaining troll hag, the one without the talisman protection, flips around so it can face towards the unit that it's going to have to deal with in combat. And of course, down at the bottom here, the unit of river trolls charges into the men-at-arms, who have no choice but to die. They take, I think it was only like 9 wounds or something in combat, can't attack back, immediately lose combat, and flee off the board. Even if they gave ground, they were off. So Matthew tests to restrain, turns around, everything is fantastic there, and he's set up well to try and mop up points from me. However, despite it looking like I've lost a lot of points, at this point the only thing that Matthew's got is 169 points for the unit of men-at-arms and then a single banner, so I'm quite up on points. What I probably should have done, realistically, is then just run away with everything. I think I might have been able to do that. Arcane Urgency this unit of men-at-arms, march this unit here, chip away with the fireball caster over here, maybe try and kill something down the bottom side of the map. They would have been difficult to do, but I didn't go with that plan. I decided to sort of limit test and see what I was able to squeeze out of this game. Coming into my turn 3, and the plan that I've just told you that Matthew came up with, which was a really good plan, and the main reason I didn't play it safe, because I was like, I'm just going to kill the unit in combat. Goes pretty well. My Pillar of Fire does get into Ogdras, which was nice. Goes through the long unit and then taps into Ogdras, do a single wound to him. He is T5, so I'm only winning on 6s, but he's got less than a 5-up save. I think it's a 6-up save, and his regen is flammable, so he doesn't get any save at all against it. So surely a Pillar of Fire can chase down a lone caster. That won't be a problem at all. As for other movement, I've got 2 charges here. Both units of Pegasus Knights declare a charge into the big unit of goblins, and Matthew goes, cool, yeah, I'm going to flee. I was like, oh yeah, crap, that is a trap that you set for me. So that was a really good bit of play. I redirect 1 into the troll hag here, down in the middle, and I decide to follow up with the second unit. And what happens is I roll really low on one unit and really high on the second unit. And it's the wrong way round. What I needed to do was to roll really high on the unit that was, the unit trying to get into the troll hag. They rolled a 7. They needed an 8 to get in, so that was not ideal. And then the unit that didn't want to go in, I think rolled an 11 or maybe even a 12. I think I might have gone the full 22 inches forwards. So one unit is right in front of a unit of trolls that's going to try and chase them and kill them, and the other one is nowhere near the troll hag that I wanted to beat to death. So not a great turn in terms of charges. The men-at-arms just march away down in the bottom right. The Knights of the Realm, I do have a plan for them. They're trying to hunt down Ogdras. I know it looks like they're doing nothing, but trust me, they are getting there. They march round out of harm's way, do just the full 16-inch march, and the Prophetess flies forwards, arcane agencies into the woods, doesn't take a wound, and then drops double fireball into the unit of River Trolls, only does 3 wounds between them, but you know what? It's chip damage, it's turn 3, I've got time to pick them up, I'm not too worried. So I'd say a little bit of a concerning turn for me, because now I'm in real get-eaten territory, which I don't love. I don't love that at all for me. So coming into Matthew's turn, we then have some real messy play, I think. Not in terms of like people playing wrong, but just sort of the board state gets pretty uncontrolled. What happens is, first of all, the Troll Hag decides to charge into the unit of Pegasus Knights in front of her. I elect to countercharge, and both units of trolls, the Stone Trolls and the River Trolls, try and charge into the unit of Pegasus Knights that are on the top left. I don't know if Matthew just thought I wouldn't run away with them on the basis of if I run away I lose my ward save, but that is what I did. So I fled, and because he declared a charge with both units, I ran away from the highest unit strength, the unit on the hill, which meant that I went, up to the north. They were unable to redirect into anyone, so both of them just wheeled the minimum and then ran forwards. The angle on here looks a little bit odd, but we did line it up correctly, so I'm not sure why it's facing like so. But yeah, both units failed the charge, basically. It looks like one model died to a charge here, but that just died to shooting or something along those lines. Over by the hill, my Pillar of Fire hits Ogdras, does no damage. He runs away. Great stuff. And the only real bit of damage is the Foot of Gork being cast, which is damage to my mental state. And then also the combat versus between the Baron and the Troll Hag. I was pretty confident that a Baron with an Ogre Blade and the Virtue of Knightly Temper would kill a Troll Hag in combat, because you get a single regen against it. You get a single 5-up, and I've got, 4 attacks plus D3, rerolling all my hits, hitting on 3s, rerolling, and then I'm going to be wounding you on 3s as well. So I was like, oh, surely I get you with my D3 damage. Turns out, no. I did a grand total of 9 damage, but 5 of it was stopped by regen. Obviously, you roll your wounds first. You regen first, and then you roll the thing as well. But I rolled it because it mattered in the combat. And it was a good job that I did manage it, because Matthew rolled a 6 on the table, which is D6 plus 1 hits at strength. So I wounded me on 2s, and then I think it's no armor save. Yeah. I think it's called Mither. The Troll Hag table is wild. Basically, I was very comfortable going into the combat because I thought I was going to kill it. But when I looked at the Troll Hag table again and reminded myself what it did, I probably shouldn't have been so ballsy. Because on a 3 to 6, I think my Baron just straight up dies in the challenge if he doesn't manage to kill the Troll Hag first. Because it's lots of either auto wounds or auto hits at a high strength, ignoring all armor saves. And all I'm relying on then is the ward save that I've got. So yeah, I did like 11 points of combat res, and Matthew did a surprisingly high amount of combat res. I elect not to follow up because I'm terrified of getting into combat with this thing. And I get it down to 2 wounds remaining, which is fine. And it's in realm of like, oh, maybe I can kill it with magic missiles again, because that's what I've been doing to the other one. So I elect to hold, but a little bit rough in terms of that combat. Losing a 300 odd point character and not killing the monster that it was going into was not the expectation I had, because everyone talks about how good Bretonnian characters are. Coming into my turn, number 4, I decide that I don't want none of that smoke, and instead of charging the Killing Blow character into the troll, I decide to charge it into the unit of Stone Trolls, I should say. Is it? No. Yes, the unit of Stone Trolls, the 3 wounds but a better save. The ones that are stood in front of the goblins. This is probably my best play, because what it means is I can go in, I'm probably going to win the combat. When I win the combat, I will then overrun into the big unit of goblins. I'm out of charge arc of the unit of river trolls here. Everyone's a winner. It kind of went like that. I went in, I did less wounds than I was expecting to do. I got 1 killing blow, which was nice, and I used my Paymaster's coin here to make sure that I got all my hits. But yeah, I didn't do anywhere near as much damage as I thought I was going to, which was a little bit of a problem. So I only push them back, they fall back in good order, I catch him. I end up out of charge arc, but it means that I'm then in a protracted combat with trolls, which is not really ever where you want them to be. On the right-hand flank, you can see here, I've marched the units of the Knights of the Realm up, and I've moved the second unit of Pegasus, the ones who have run away and rallied. I've marched them, so I've got Ogdra's caught in a trap. Why have I done this? Because, well, I think I've hit him 4 times with Pillar of Fire, and he's taken a single wound. So I was like, this nonsense has got to stop. I've got to catch you some other way. And also, I don't want to send them into any of the stuff down at the bottom of the map, because they'll lose that combat pretty comfortably. Yeah. In terms of shooting, I scooch the Prophetess up. I try an Arcane Urgency. I fail to Arcane Urgency again. It's a great spell, but casting on a 10 does mean that there is a little bit of variance in there, whether you get that one off. And I do kill the Troll Hag here with double Magic Missile. Again, Fireball just really strong into Troll Horde. I'm a huge fan of that spell. Other than that, yeah, not too much to say. Again, it looks like I'm really low on models left, because I am. But in terms of unit points given up, I think I've only given up right now I've given up a 300-point character and a 170-point unit plus a banner. So what, like 600 odd points, something in that realm, 620, 630, 720, 730. Anyway, by the by, I haven't actually given up all that many points, and I've killed quite a lot of stuff. Double Troll Hag, one of the big units. I'm looking like I'm probably going to kill a 3rd unit. Instead of charging and, maybe like my game plan here should just be to run away instead of trying to sustain combats, but it's not what I went for. Again, learning game. It's very much limit testing and working out how I want to play this army. So yeah, all good stuff. Win the combat, push them back, take a surprising amount of wounds. I'm down to just 3 wounds on the unit now, and then I've got the this is the Pegasus Knights. 3 wounds on the Pegasus Knights, plus the Baron, who's obviously doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But I'm really worried that if I go down to only having a single Pegasus Knight and then the heroic killing blow character as well, I won't have enough output to win on combat res against the goblins, which does really scare me. So yeah, that's a little bit of a concern that I've got to deal with. Coming into Matthew's turn 5, Ogdra's runs away, and at this point we had a chat. It was a moment of misunderstanding, actually. So we were talking about what his best chance of survival is, because he's got a pretty okay profile. I think he's like strength 6, AP 1 in combat at initiative 4. He could probably win a challenge against a Knight of the Realm champion. Turns out there isn't one in there. So when we were talking about it, I was like, yeah, I guess maybe we should move him over the hill so the Pegasus Knights can't see him, and then he can just win the challenge. And then realized that I didn't have a champion in there. So I felt bad about it. But again, survives the Pillar of Fire because he is truly the worst in the world. And the Knights in the Realm are positioned in front of him. All good stuff there. Other than that, the unit of River Trolls remaining flips around so they can potentially flank charge into my characters here. I didn't have much choice, or sorry, I did have much choice. What I should have done, this was a real misplay. I obviously win combat into the Stone Trolls. My opponent has cast Foot of Gork here as well, so when I overrun, I end up overlapping the base. I pass the dangerous terrain test, but if it moves at all, I'm going to take hits. I should have just tested to not, have to deal with them at all. What I should have done, realistically, is test to restrain. He's behind me, he's in front of me, I'm sandwiched, but I fly. I then, march 20 inches in this direction into the center of the board, and then Arcane Urgency them away. I'm winning massively on points. The only way I lose is if I lose this unit. So electing to overrun was a real blunder. The reason I went for the overrun is I didn't want to get stand and shot by the quick shot short bows. I shouldn't have charged them anyway. So that was a mistake there, and one that I will definitely try to avoid on the next turn. But yeah, we're into the dregs of the game. Not all that much happening. Matthew's set up a bit of a sandwich there that I have, again, fallen for. And there's a Foot of Gork that's ready to do me some damage. So coming into my turn number 6, does the Foot of Gork move? It does. Yeah, it does. And it kills the 1 wound character, and that is a problem because I'm now in combat with the goblins and I'm making 4 less attacks, which means I'm a lot less likely to win on combat rares. The chance of me being able to chase them down is significantly lower, and I'm in a bit of a rough spot in terms of that unit behind me. So a real blunder for me. Up on the top side of the right, the unit that charges into Ogdros does go in. I think one of them dies, but no, nobody dies. They kill Ogdros handily. Turns out 4 Knights of the Realm do manage to cut him down with their lancers, which is quite nice. The Prophetess moves forwards. At this point, my hope is that I can kill enough river trolls to cause a panic, and if they panic, then they won't be able to, if I get them down to 2 models, cause a panic check, then they will theoretically be fleeing. Even if they rally, they won't be able to charge the unit in the flank down the bottom here, because I'm in sort of like salvage the mistake I made mode. But yeah, I kill enough to cause a panic. They don't panic. I don't kill enough to get points from them, and that's kind of by the by. I do push the unit back here. They give ground. They roll a 6/6 initially on the whether they flee. This is the goblins in combat, but then thankfully BSB rolls into a give ground. I'm like, all right, cool. I test a restrain because I think my best plan here is to run away, and it comes into Matthew's final turn 6. So we talked about this situation down at the bottom here for quite a while, and I don't know what the best course of action is. So I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are if you're still with me at this point of the video. But Matthew got really unlucky. So he started off with the Footed Gork that he didn't get rid of, running through his models, killing 5 of them, which was hilarious, not hitting me at all. Then he went to cast Itchy Nuisance, miscast, rolled a 1/1, got the large blast template, killed another 5 models. At this point, had to make a panic check. Does pass the panic check, fortunately. I can't remember if he needed the BSB to do it, but he passes the panic check, so he's okay. But he's lost a significant amount of shooting there into the 1 Pegasus Knight champion, and then the Grommel Greathelm character as well. So that's not ideal for him. He then has decided that his best course of action is to stand still and shoot into the unit. Here's the problem. If he charges, I'm just going to flee. And because you wheel instead of pivoting, and he could either charge me with the trolls, at which point I'd fly over him and then end up somewhere over here, which is super safe and he'd never catch me. Or, obviously, there's, I think, risk of perils. I think even if you're flying, you risk taking perils. I'd have to look at that. But anyway, I feel like I'd get out of there comfortably. Or if he charges me with both units, I would flee away from the highest unit strength. I was quite close to the trolls, so I'd end up on the other side of them. And then even with a massive wheel, like, his chance of catching me, we thought was pretty low because I was fleeing 3d6 with the Swift Stride in there. So we decided the best course of action was to stand still and shoot with the poison archers. What did that translate to? Well, it translated to killing the unit. Obviously, you allocate hits. There were 5 hits and a poison. 3 of them, well, one of the poisons and a single hit. One of the poison and 2 of the hits went into the single Pegasus Knight. The Pegasus Knight then was wounded once, so he took 2 saves. I'm explaining this very poorly. Basically, he forced me to take 2 saves, and I failed both those saves. Remember this. I rolled a 1/1 on the save, and then a 3 and a 4 on the ward save. It didn't matter what I rolled on the ward. But yeah, so I lost the Pegasus Knights, which was 300 and change points. So that was a big point swing for my opponent. But none of them went through into the 2-up save, rerolling ones. Even with the AP 1 from Evil Sunshining, I still managed to survive here with the Grommel Greathelm character, which was what I expected. I was expecting to lose 1 model, but not the character as well. Then my opponent did manage to cast the Vindictive Glare. He'd been trying all game, and this was only the second time he got it off. Managed to wound me, did 2 wounds. Great stuff. He ignores armor saves, so the Grommel Greathelm's not going to help me there. But my lord is left on to 3 wounds remaining. He's not going to score any points for it. It does change what I do. If I was left on full wounds, I probably charge into that unit of the stone trolls, river trolls, but don't go for it. Come into my last turn, see if I can mop up any points, and do some shooting. Don't manage to get anything. That's the end of the game. What does that translate to? A surprisingly close game. It was I think about a 12-8 victory for me, but it was very close. If the Duke dies there at the end, that's 400 points. Suddenly we're in a tie. Or if, I managed to pick up the BSB. I managed to do 1 wound in combat to the BSB because I was in base to base with my lord with him, but didn't finish him off. If I kill the BSB, I get an extra 117 points, so that swings it further in my favor. It was definitely a game where it could have gone. At the end of the game, it really swung back and forth, and that was mostly because I made some poor decisions about taking fights that I didn't need to take. Great game, had a lot of fun. Really enjoyed playing Bretonnians more than I have in previous attempts when I've just tried to play them like everyone plays Bretonnians, which is just you do the full violence, the full send. That's really not my play style. No, this list absolutely can do that, but I enjoyed not having to. How am I going to change the list? I think I'm tempted to change the men at arms to 1 unit of 40 and then maybe go for some archers as well. I think archers are just generally solid, have a little bit more range firepower. Because they're skirmishers, they're a little resistant to incoming damage. I can have them on flanks. They're 50 points. They're probably going to get mopped up, but it takes a lot of effort for my opponent to pick them up. So that's maybe something I play around with. Yeah, I don't know. I like the core of the list. It felt very flexible. I liked being able to dance around with the caster. I don't know if I maybe try and put a second caster in, but again, if we're seeing those level 4 caps that are rumored, that's not something that we can play around with anyway. And the characters are so good, so I probably don't give that one a go, even though it would be nice to have two blaster casters. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. If you've reached this point and you haven't already, I would really appreciate a like, a comment, a subscription if you haven't done those things. It just helps me get seen by more people, boost me up in the algorithm, all of the stuff that the YouTubers do like to say. If you would like to support me in my goal to become a full-time YouTuber, I would absolutely appreciate that. You can become a member below. There are various perks to those, name at the end of the videos, all that good stuff, but it also unlocks some VIP areas in Discord if you become a Longbeard or Ground Knight tier supporter. Those VIP sections are the only parts that are locked away in Discord. You don't have to be a member to join the Discord. I'd recommend that you should. We've got about 450, 500 people on there. It's a great place for discussion, a lot of fun. I do try and chime in as much as possible. And it's also where the Fix My List show lists are put, and also if you are one of the Ground Knight or Longbeard tier supporters, where you participate in choosing which list I play in the monthly Pick My List series.